Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Now, as you'll know if you collect British coins, every British coin has a portrait of the current monarch on the obverse for when it was made. But today we'll be asking, how accurate are these portraits compared to their real photographs, or for earlier monarchs of course, their portraits, and paintings being the only way for us and historians to know what they truly look like. So we'll go back in time, starting with the earliest monarch, King Charles III. And here is his portrait, very recently done by Martin Jennings. And here is a real photograph of the profile of the king. Now, comparing them, we can see, I think it is a very good likeness. The hairstyle is right, the ear shape is right, and the face is actually quite recognisable. And I think if you were to show someone the portrait of this and say, who is that? They would know that it is King Charles III. And now on to Queen Elizabeth II. There is her fifth portrait by Jodie Clark, and here is a later portrait, a later profile of the Queen, and comparing the two, we can see once again a very good likeness. The hairstyle is a little bit different to what it is, but of course that will change over time. However, the facial shape, the details of the nose and the mouth and the face are again very recognisable as the elder Queen. And here is the younger version of the Queen. We can see her first portrait there to the left by Mary Gillick, and a younger portrait of the Queen herself, which I would say is not the best likeness and could be mistaken for who it is. Here is King George VI, a absolutely amazing portrait, extremely accurate, very good detail, the hairstyle, the ear and the face, extremely recognisable if you know the looks of George VI. Then you'll know his portrait, as they are very nearly identical. Here is George V, another very good portrait. We can see the very recognisable moustache and beard there on both the king himself and the portrait, and then again his face, quite good, and his ear and hairstyle as well, very accurate for this coin, and it was done by Bertram McKennell, that portrait, the only one used of the king. Here is the portrait of King Edward VII, and again, very good and accurate. The shape of his nose and quite deep-set eyes have been conveyed onto the coin, and his quite pointy beard, with moustache again on the coin, very good detail, with the ear and hair again, very nice indeed, a good and recognisable coin portrait. Here is a later portrait of Queen Victoria, and while initially for me it doesn't look exactly that accurate, the more closer you look to the eyes, to the nose, the mouth, the sort of facial structure, it is actually rather accurate, my only criticism being the ear on the portrait is too small compared to the real Victoria. Here is a younger portrait of Queen Victoria. This is known as the bun head. As we can see there to the right, Victoria does wear her hair in a bun quite a lot as a young queen, with this young portrait being quite accurate again, with all the details conveyed to the portrait. Now then, moving on to King William IV, and here's his portrait and here's his real likeness. Now you can see quite an accurate portrait, the detail to the hairstyle and the sort of double chin being quite good, whereas the nose and the mouth and the eyes not quite perfect, but still quite recognisable for William IV. Here is George IV, and again the hairstyle, very good, very accurate. We can see here the nose and the cheeks though, not quite the same as his portrait, but overall you can definitely tell who it is by looking at the portrait of the king, and then his coin portrait is the same person for sure, definitely his portrait on the coin. Here is an older portrait of King George III, and this one is very accurate indeed. It almost looks like a mirrored image of him looking to himself, as I'm sure you can see without me saying, it is a very good likeness and a very good portrait for the George III, as he looks very much the same in his portrait and his coin portrait. Here is George II, and again, a very good portrait. We can see the hair there, the sort of longer curly hair being conveyed to the coin. The mouth and the nose structure is a little bit different to his portrait, but overall quite recognisable. Here we have George I, another very good coin portrait, and the face is perfect for this one. The hair is a little bit different, a little bit less thick on the portrait of the coin, but the nose, the mouth and the eyes for that portrait is very good. Here we have Queen Anne, another very good portrait. Her nose to the portrait is a little bit bigger perhaps on the coin, but then again we have the same hairstyle and a very good likeness for the eyes and the mouth, so very recognisable there for the Queen Anne portrait. Here we have William III. Now we can see if you look to the portrait, his sort of flat, broken nose, and then looking to his actual face, you can see that detail there again. So overall, a good mark for this coin, I'd say, with a good likeness there of King William III. And of course, he did co-reign with Queen Mary for a while, and both their portraits in the coin and in real life are very identical and matching, so a good portrait there. Here we have James II, which isn't the best coin portrait, I would say. The eyes, the nose, and the lips and the face structure are a little bit different. The hair's a bit different. So overall, too many differences to be recognisable for me. Here we have Charles II, a very good coin portrait there, with his thin moustache, quite large nose, and his mouth and chin there being very accurate and very realistic to his real portrait there. We have here Charles I, and again, quite a good portrait. His long and slender face with a pointy beard and moustache there conveyed onto the coin, so a good likeness of him for this portrait of him. We then have here James I, and again, quite a good portrait. His beard and his moustache there onto the coin, and the sort of shape of his forehead and eyes and nose again conveyed onto the coin, even though there's not much detail on this portrait. We then have Elizabeth I, and although you could tell who it is from the portrait of the coin, the portrait on the coin and the portrait in real life aren't extremely similar, so while recognisable, perhaps not the most accurate portrait of a monarch. We then have Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, and her portrait in the coin and her portrait in real life are quite different once again, and without knowing, you probably would not be able to know that it is the same person on the coin and in the portrait. We then have the boy king, Edward VI. This is a very good portrait, probably because he's young, so you can recognise a young king on both portraits there, but his sort of face shape, his hairstyle there, conveyed to the coin very well. We then have King Henry VIII, an incredibly good portrait there, extremely recognisable there to the coin, and of course the real thing is infamous for Henry VIII, a very recognisable monarch, both on coin and in portrait. We then have King Henry VII. His hairstyle is accurate, his face is alright, but his chin. There is something going on with his chin on the coin, which I'm sure was not there in real life. Now, Henry VII is known for having one of the first accurate portraits. As before his time, we enter the time of medieval coins in England, and the portraits then are not as accurate as they are now. Now here we can see a portrait of Richard III to the left, and his coin portrait on the right, and it's not very accurate. But what's even more shocking is here is Edward V, and here's his coin portrait. Not only were they all inaccurate, but they all looked exactly the same for most of medieval times. But we will have a look at some very notable portraits from very early times when they're very inaccurate indeed. So here we have King John, famous for signing the Magna Carta, and in his portrait he doesn't look too bad. But on his coin portrait, it is not the best look for the King of England to show regal and God-given power to have this portrait circulating among your subjects. Even worse is the portrait for William II. Here we have a portrait of William II, and by all accounts it doesn't look too bad there, but on the coin it is a different story. With no internet, how did subjects know him? By this as his portrait. This is almost sort of funny how very, very bad this is, with a few dots for eyes, a strange mark for the nose, and a very deformed mouth. Definitely not the best look, but please do comment down below whose portrait is the most accurate. Who do you think has the most lifelike portrait to their real looks? And of course, please do subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed and learned something new, and thank you for watching to the end. We'll see you soon for more coins in the future on Bits and Bobs. Bye.